Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Nigerian Abroad podcast. It's me, your host, Ijay, or if you're feeling very extra, you can call me Ijeme, which is what I prefer. Thank you guys for watching the last few episodes. And today, I want to talk about one of the biggest culture shocks I experienced when I moved countries. And it's something that seems quite, I wouldn't say passive, but it kind of lingers in the shadows, and we eventually start to see how it creeps into our lives. And that is something about age and respect and like hierarchy of like where respect falls into. And this episode is going to be more like an observation as opposed to let me tell you how to do it, or let me tell you how to live your life once you have come to this place. Um First things first, I am Nigerian, hence the podcast title, but generally I think there are certain cultures that kind of experience this whole um shift and change when they move to different countries with completely different cultures. First example, I've told this story so many times as how I came into my master's degree and my professor asked me to call her not just by her first name but by her nickname, and it was a huge, I wouldn't say it was a humbling experience. It was a very challenging thing for me to do. Even right now, I think back at the time. To be fair, I never said her name out loud. I only like referred to her by the nickname when I sent her emails, and I never actually called her that. I would just be like, so you were saying this, and that's how I just like navigate through the whole experience. I never like once said it out loud. And now fast forward to my workspace and my work environment, and I'm having to do that, but I always feel like a knot in my stomach, and it's something that I don't think I would be able to get over for a while. Like I can adapt to it, but unlearning 20 plus years of culture is going to be extreme. So come with me on the ride. But the thing about age and respect is apart from apart from it like affecting how I treat or not treat people who are older than me by age and in authority or in positions, it also like kind of affects how I see people younger than me. So I have been in positions where people younger than me are in like work positions higher than me. So maybe they're like my manager, and there is a part of my brain that always goes, but I'm older than you. Like, how dare you talk to me like that? Instinctively, before I then like stop myself. I mean, I never say it to them because I don't want to get fired, but I never say it to them, but I think it. And a lot of the times when I do that, I have to stop myself. I have to stop and reflect in that moment and ask myself, what really is the issue and how deep is culture running in my veins that it is trying to dictate this part of my life, and how many times would I have to stop myself and unlearn this unhealthy habit of always thinking that age determines so many things, because age does not determine maturity. Age does not determine, I mean, to an extent age determines experience. There is a certain level of experience that comes with age, but we have to get to that point where we recognize that maturity, wisdom, and even skills can happen to anybody at any given point in time, especially if they have applied themselves to that certain thing. So I had just been walking about, moving about my life with this whole mentality that because I am of a certain age, I should know how to do something, which is a flawed mentality. And I think it's a very flawed generalization to think that. Now, I'm not saying that every Nigerian thinks this. I'm not saying that every person who has similar cultural experiences has this mentality, but quite a few of us have this thinking of, I'm not even your mate, oh, like, how old are you? And I think that the more we let go of, the more we sever those ties that we have to those thinking, to that thinking, we can move to be better. We can take steps to improve ourselves. It might seem uncomfortable. It's just one of those things, like somebody younger than you, and the first thing you're automatically thinking is, I'm older than this person. How dare they say this rubbish to me? And it is such a backward mentality because, first and foremost, you are already denying yourself the opportunity to learn and grow from this person because you have just decided that because this person is younger than you by a certain number of years, that automatically disqualifies them from teaching you something or being in a position to help you improve in certain ways. And I think that is one part of my culture that I don't really appreciate. I don't know if I appreciated it or I just accepted it and it just started to find and seep its way into my life. If we think about respect, for instance, and how we perceive respect, most cultures in Nigeria see respect as a physical reverence, a physical way to show that you are lower than this person. So if you're up in the morning and you want to greet your parents, it's not like a whole good morning and that's it. There's a physical kneeling and you're like you're greeting them or you bow or you do all of that. That one I see that that's like a whole reverence thing and all, but then it takes it a notch higher where if you don't do those things, then you are seen as disrespectful. But one can argue that people can do those things, those physical things, and still be disrespectful. But for most, it's impossible to do the physical things and be disrespectful. They just need to see that physical thing. Like you, even in a Nigerian work environment where you have to do certain things, help your boss with his or her bag, make sure that you are like curtsying or bowing or showing like a physical, oh, yes, ma, sorry, ma, so that they know that you are showing the respect when it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Respect can mean so many things. Respect can mean that you take their word for what it is. Respect can mean that before you do anything, you go up to them and say, I'd like to do this. What do you think? Respect can mean informing them of your decisions. But because of the different way respect is perceived, there are certain ways it has to be shown, which became a huge learning curve for me when I moved abroad because I think I still struggle with that because there are certain ways I would like to like show up and show that I respect you. It has sort of backfired on me because if I try to do the extra stuff or overdo, I just get this weird look like, what are you doing? Like, nobody asked you to do this or something like that. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, doing the extra stuff shows that I respect this person, or doing this shows that I am good and I am well trained and I am just willing to help out and I'm such a good employee. But that's really different from what the perception is here. Respect here, at least at a workplace, is showing up and doing your job, and that's it. Like, and I really, really, really struggled with that, and I know a lot of us struggle with that because then you have to like unlearn so many patterns that you've picked up from growing up and wanting to please and wanting to do those little extra bits so you can get your promotion. Getting a promotion doesn't necessarily mean that you have been bowing and greeting your boss with curtsies and all of that, offering to get her lunch, just so that she can see that you are respected, you are a respectful person, and that you have manners. Getting a promotion means you deserve it, and you've worked hard, and you maybe work well with colleagues or something like that. It's one of those things that you think about and you're like, hmm, I need to work on how I view age and respect in this new country that I'm in. Another thing that really I need to think about my words. But another thing that really um shocked me in a way was how I viewed children speaking to their parents. And I'm drawing the line between like speaking to your parents and being rude to your parents. So that's not what I'm talking about, but just speaking to your parents and challenging what they've said. To this day, I cannot s- challenge my parents on what they say. I can they'll hear this podcast. They'll hear or they'll watch this podcast anyway. But I can gossip behind their back with my siblings, but I cannot say that. And this is not true for everyone. A lot of people have gotten to that point where they are able to speak and all of that. So if let's say your parents offend you slightly, you can easily say, I didn't like that. You get to a point for most African children, you get to a point where you're like, and a lot of them, it's usually when they have gotten a job and are able to sustain themselves, so they can now be like, okay, I can talk back, I can challenge you, I'm able to do this for myself, I don't live under your roof anymore. That's that is it. um I have not gotten to that point, and for me that's just a me thing, and it's something that I feel like I would still work on. Besides that point, I really struggled with not even doing it, but just observing it and seeing how um children were able to talk back and just say, no, I don't agree with you. I don't like that you did that to me. Why? No. And there is room for a conversation. There's room for a dialogue. Even in schools, because I work in a school. Even in schools, if you want a whole reference to this, I have a whole episode on like Nigerian teachers who came here and they're working in the UK, and there were a lot of cultural shocks that they experienced. But even at that point, like there is an environment, they are raising children to have the confidence to speak up and talk back and actually say their minds. If something doesn't sit well with them, they can actually stand up and say, I don't like this. And if the adult in that situation is wrong, they're able to admit it. They're able to say, I am wrong. I never experienced that. Like, I had so many scenarios, not just in family situations, but even in education settings where my teacher was wrong in that scenario and would not, over his dead body, he would not admit it. It was just a thing I had to think about, like, why can't you admit that you're wrong about something? Why can't you just say, oh, that's true, you're right, I was wrong about that? It is human to be wrong, but if you're raising a child and trying to get them to think that because you're the adult, you're right, and because they're the child, they have to listen to you, then there's a problem, because then that child grows up to be somebody who finds it hard to challenge others or talk back or just have confrontational conversations because they something has made them uncomfortable, if that makes sense. And it all goes back to the weird toxic system of respect and age. I'm the adult, so you listen to me, and you have nothing to say, so be quiet. I grew up not learning how to speak to adults, even at this point, speak to adults, speak to people in higher positions than I am. I think in the last episode, I talked about how even sending an email to my superiors about me being off sick was such a huge thing for me, and I had to learn how to be like, oh, I'm off, I can't make it, I can't do this because I can't, because I'm ill or something, or if I just had a wedding to attend, which this was even something that happened. I had to attend my cousin's wedding, And I agonized about how I would send that email to my line manager. I had worked out how the rota was going to um, work without me. I thought about how, okay, if I'm not here for this time, I can make up for this time and this time and this time and this time. So I sent the email to my line manager, and she was like, "Oh, it's fine. We'll just leave that bit blank." And I was like, "What? What do you mean? I agonized for days before I sent this email." And it was just, I had to reflect on that fact, because then I was thinking about how much I struggle to speak about certain things. I'm doing a lot better now, by the way. I'm doing a lot better. That could also be because I didn't really work in a work establishment in Nigeria. I was doing mostly dance and dance teaching. So there wasn't really a structured environment for me to practice all of that. So that could also be a factor. But I know for sure that there is a lingering thing about age and respect and the way we were brought up as to how we are now um living our lives. Like, seeing that a child is able to speak up and say, I don't think I like that. That could also be a generational thing, by the way. Maybe millennials and Gen Zs and how they're raising their kids, which is absolutely phenomenal. But I also think it is still deeply rooted in our culture and how we view age and respect. So that's actually one of my New Year's resolutions, to learn how to have confrontational conversations with people who like make me uncomfortable, rather than just shut down. Especially with like with my family. I mean, I have the advantage of distance, so I can just shut off and nobody would come and find me anywhere. So very toxic. But we're working on that. So that's how much I think about this particular age and respect thing. You come to a new country, and amongst other things, you're like, oh, I used to do this back home. I used to live my life this certain way, and now I've seen that this seems different. A lot of the times it's not necessarily better, but you can observe the difference. You are able to notice the similarities, but mostly the differences, and you can deduce, and you're able to be like, I like how this is. For me, it was one of the major things I saw first from my master's degree, when I was not able to call my professor by her nickname, but then it kind of like started to pile up to several other things, and how I was able to communicate with other people, but also how I would navigate my relationships, so like friendships, work relationships, how I was able to respond to people younger than me, but in higher positions. Also, people who were older than me. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. There was one that the lady was older than me, but I was in a higher position. Oh my god, that was so hard, because I was then watching people, people even younger than me, but then like barking orders at her. Like, and I'm not exaggerating when I say barking orders. That made me so, so, so uncomfortable, because then I try to overcompensate and be a little bit extra with my respect and respect giving, and showing that it didn't actually help, because the lady was Nigerian. So I was not like, oh, let her not now think that I'm from a bad home and I don't have manners and my parents didn't train me well. So I was being extra, and I was over exaggerating my physical reverence. And I was like, wait, wait, wait. This person doesn't know you from anywhere, but you just feel like you owe it to this person to give this respect. And can we also talk about the fact that when two Nigerians, especially if you're like in a workplace where you're like the only Nigerians or the only black people, when they spot each other, all of a sudden it's like besties have met and they're talking and gisting about God knows what. That would never be the case if we were back home in Nigeria, but all of a sudden, I guess it's like a shared um trauma bonding or something or something like that. So but I think about this age thing a lot. I think about how I've changed regarding that, and whether when I go back to Nigeria, I always think about w- how I would play it. So if I go back to Nigeria, obviously I still have um people I know and family members who would still expect this whole physical reverencing and all of that. I think about whether I've changed so much that I won't do that anymore, or if I just have to put on that mask and just do that because I'm there and there's just that bit where I have to perform in that sense, or if it's just something that I'm like, this is a part of me, I like doing it, and that's fine. I understand why I do it. I understand why I don't have to do it when I'm in the UK or whatever country that you have traveled to. But is it something that you have to go back and forth with? Like, I'm just doing it because I don't want wahala. I'm just doing it because I don't have energy or something like that. And it's a huge thing when you actually stop and pause to reflect, because how is it that age and respect affects us all so much that it determines how we communicate with certain people? It determines how we view certain people. There was a time in my life when I would compare myself to somebody who was like my age mate. So, for instance, I'd say this person is this age and they've achieved this much, but I'm this age and I haven't. And then I'd be like, but this person is younger than me and she has achieved this much. How am I letting this happen? And I'm like, IJ, you've managed to create comparison with every person in every walks of life. I think you just enjoy being miserable or something like that. And it was something I had to stop and put a pause on, because it wasn't actually making me happy. It wasn't actually getting me anywhere. It was just making me even more miserable and more tensed and more emotionally unbalanced, which I did not enjoy. So I had to take a step back. There was a bit of comparison in it, but I had to also like work on my mentality and my perception of how I view age and respect, and what respect actually is, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know if I just rambled or I just said a whole bunch of nonsense, but thank you for listening to me rant and make noise. I'll see you in the next episode. Oh wait, hold on. Please like, share, comment, and make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on YouTube. We're also on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we are on everywhere you can get your podcasts. Bye guys.